In Ecuador National Electoral Council announced the dates for snap general elections after the dissolution of the Congress. Chinese President Xi Jinping outlined the main lines of cooperation between China and Central Asia at the historic summit with regional leaders. And also, the 32nd Arab League Presidential Summit opens in Jeddah, Western Saudi Arabia, as attendees expected to discuss and sign draft resolutions as part of the Arab Action Plan 2023. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Thursday, Ecuador's electoral authority declared open the electoral process with August 20th as the date set for the first round. After the Constitutional Court rejected the 6 lawsuits filed on Wednesday and Thursday against the Executive Decree number 741, better known as Cross Death, the National Electoral Council approved the decision. The judges, appointed randomly, decided unanimously in spite of repeated calls from different political and social sectors. The calendar suggested earlier by the President of the National Electoral Council was finally ratified. Should a second round be necessary, it will be on October 15th. On Thursday, Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador issued an order to override a Supreme Court ruling against his infrastructure projects. Hours after Mexico's Supreme Court ruled that a government agreement declaring major infrastructure projects as works of national security was unconstitutional, Mexico's president published a similar order in the official journal of the Federation in clear defiance of the High Court's ruling. In this way, López Obrador shields the Mayan train projects, the Interoceanic Corridor, the airports of Chetumal, Tulum, and Palenque, again as works of public interests. The document detailed that national security must be understood from a strategic perspective because it will try to anticipate risks and threats. On Thursday, Haitian police condemned the attack on 2 police patrols that resulted in the death of an officer in the area of the Source Motelas in the western commune of Cabaret. Authorities explained in a statement that during the early morning hours, unidentified gunmen ambushed the vehicles and set them on fire with Molotov cocktails. After confirming the death of an agent and offering condolences to friends and family, they assured they continue to work to arrest those responsible for the crime. So far this year, at least 22 police officers have been killed, most of them by armed groups. And the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, welcomed on Thursday the resumption of peace talks in Cuba between his government and the National Liberation Army. The President said on social networks that work will continue at the talks table in Havana with the aim of reaching bilateral and national ceasefire agreements. On Wednesday, the Organization of American States mission in Colombia called on the army groups to join the ceasefire proposed by the government and to suspend violence against all civilians. The organization called on the insurgent groups to join the Total Peace Law and to suspend immediately violent actions, with the goal of respecting and guaranteeing the life and fundamental rights of Colombians. And the confrontation between indigenous communities and marijuana farmers in the Colombian southwestern department of Cauca resulted in at least 6 people injured. The incident occurred on Thursday in the village of Paramillo in the municipal jurisdiction of Santander de Quilichao, when the indigenous people were eliminating illegal crops and the farmers' union opposed them. The police confirmed the use of blunt objects and blunt weapons. 4 ancestral guards and 2 facilitators of the Seeds of Life program were injured, and 4 farmers got arrested. Authorities required the presence and support of the Ombudsman's office. The Peruvian Congress has received a request to declare Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador persona non grata on the basis of interference in the country's internal affairs. The request was made by the right-wing deputy for the Go On Country Party, Patricia Chirinos, who also denounced the Mexican president for his reluctance to recognize the right of the Peruvian state to exercise the pro-tempore presidency of the Pacific Alliance. López Obrador has repeatedly qualified Boluarte's government as illegitimate, and has called the Peruvian president an usurper for having participated in the right-wing plot to overthrow her predecessor, the former president Pedro Castillo. The Mexican president has also refused to hand over the presidency of the Pacific Alliance to Peru due to his questioning of the Boluarte administration. Brazil's Superior Electoral Court fined several legislators, among them Flavio Bolsonaro, the son of the former president Jair Bolsonaro, for spreading false news or fake news against the current president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva in the 2022 campaign. Besides Bolsonaro, who is currently a senator, his colleague Mara Gabrilli and the congresswoman Carla Zambelli were fined. The fine amounts to 10,000 reals, just over $2,000 for each one, details the TSE in a press release. In a radio interview on the eve of the first round of last year's elections, Gabrilli linked Lula and the Workers' Party to the murder of the 2002 of Celso Daniel, then mayor of the municipality of Santo André in Sao Paulo. Previously, the TSE had already ordered the removal of the content from social networks. On Thursday, in an exclusive interview for C5N, the vice president confirmed that she will not be a candidate in the upcoming elections in Argentina and affirmed that she uses her words responsibly.
There is that understanding in people. Love, affection, and faith share. But that understanding is an attribute of most. It's very clear what I say and published the other day. It's just the ratification of what I say on December 6th.
Let's take a short break. But remember, you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Russian government announced that it has extended the Black Sea grain deal for another 2 months. The announcement was made during a press conference on Thursday by the Kremlin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, who also said there was some results in the negotiations with the participation of representatives of Turkey, Ukraine, and the UN. The Kremlin officials stressed that the fate of the deal is still in the hands of those with whom the UN should agree on the Russian part of the deal. Peskov affirmed these were results, but there were no final, and Moscow will try to fully resolve this problem during the next 60 days. He also noted that talks were underway over the supply of ammonia and fertilizers. On Thursday, Uganda's Foreign Minister Jeddah Odongo held a top-level meeting with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov over the Ukraine Black Sea grain deal. On a joint news conference in Moscow, Odongo told he had urged parties involved to consider the plight of many African countries who depend on grain for wheat and bread. Sergei Lavrov, however, said the next 2 months will help decide the fate of a deal which allows Ukraine to ship grain through the Black Sea. Regarding this, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Wednesday said Moscow had agreed to extend the agreement for 2 months. Russia had set a Thursday deadline for its concerns to be ironed out, but neither Moscow nor Erdogan immediately commented on any concessions the Russians may have received. African countries have been badly hit by rising prices of grain and by the impact to world trade. Also on Thursday, Russia's Defense Ministry spokesperson Igor Konashenko said the armed forces hit all targets in a series of strikes on Ukraine overnight after Kiev said it downed 29 out of 30 missiles launched by Moscow.
Today, the armed forces of the Russian Federation carried out nighttime group strikes with long-range, sea and air-based high-precision weapons against large depots of foreign weapons and equipment as well as enemy reservoirs. The goals were achieved. All assigned targets have been destroyed. As a result of the strikes, a significant stock of weapons and ammunition of the Ukrainian armed forces were destroyed, and the advancement of reservoirs of the areas of combat operation was also prevented.
An explosion caused the derailment of 8 wagons with grain in the Russian peninsula of Crimea, reported today or on Thursday the chairman of the regional parliament, Vladimir Konstantinov. The official assured that the explosion occurred due to the intervention of unauthorized persons and that law enforcement agencies are working at the site. A Crimean railway statement on the situation also said that recovery trains were sent to the site of the incident. For his part, the governor of Crimea, Sergei Aksyonov, specified that the movement of electric trains was stopped on the section between Simferopol and Sevastopol. Passengers will be transported to these stations by buses. He also said that he is keeping the situation under personal control. The Brazilian president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, arrived in the Japanese city of Hiroshima to attend the G7 summit. The South American country participates as guest along with Australia, Comoros, the Cook Islands, India, Indonesia, South Korea, and Vietnam. According to President Lula da Silva, Brazil's bilateral agenda will begin on Friday when he meets with Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. The G7 is made up of what were once the world's most industrialized countries, such as Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The Hiroshima summit is expected to deal with the war in Ukraine, the West's relationship with China, the future of the global South, and artificial intelligence. Australian maritime authorities have identified a large area in the Indian Ocean where they will focus the search for a capsized Chinese fishing vessel, which reportedly sank on Tuesday with 39 crew members. On Thursday, a spokesperson for the Australian Maritime Safety Authority, AMSA, told the Chinese state-run Xinhua news agency that based on drift modeling, a remote 12,000 square kilometer zone has been identified to search for the vessel, which so far has 39 people on board missing, including 17 Chinese mariners or sailors, 17 from Indonesia, and 5 from the Philippines. On Wednesday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin told media that Chinese and foreign vessels have arrived at relevant waters to conduct a search and rescue operation. TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries using StarSat. Dial 461 and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Friday, Chinese local media highlights that President Xi Jinping has outlined the main lines of cooperation between his nation and Central Asia during the summit with the leaders of the 5 nations who belong to the bloc regional. The meeting, which will end on Friday, was attended by Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, the president of Kazakhstan, Sadir Japarov, the president of Kyrgyzstan, Emomali Rahmon, the president of Tajikistan, and Serdar Berdimuhammedov and Shavkat Mirziyoyev, the president of Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, respectively. Xi made an 8-point proposal ranging from economic cooperation to safeguarding regional peace that was overwhelmingly accepted by his Central Asian counterparts and will set a new course for the region. And also, in a few hours, the 32nd Arab League Presidential Summit opens in Jeddah, Western Saudi Arabia. 32 draft resolutions to be discussed and approved as part of the Arab Action Plan 2023. The summit, as it has been reported, focuses on renewal and change. For this reason, the presence of the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad after 12 years of estrangement, the Gaza and the West Bank conflict, and the Yemen and Sudan crisis are of special relevance. According to the organizing team, international issues will be high on the agenda, especially the conflict in Ukraine, has arrived to make a brief appearance in Jeddah before continuing on his way to Hiroshima. The leaders of Pakistan and Iran opened the first border market as part of the rapprochement between the two countries. The Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif, and the President of Iran, Ebrahim Raisi, inaugurated on Thursday a border market and a power grid as part of their first meeting after 10 years. The leaders also inaugurated a power line which will provide Iranian energy to several regions of Pakistan. Sharif and Raisi emphasized that both nations seek to expand bilateral cooperation and consider the joint projects to be emblematic and beneficial. Thousands of Sudanese gathered in the streets of Sudan on Friday, and some specifically around the hotel where the United Nations representative is staying, demanding him to leave the country. The political secretary of the Council of Beja Opticians, Syed Ali Abu Amnah, assures that Volker Perthes, the UN envoy for Sudan, is the main responsible for the war. He says that the intervention of the UN official has contributed to the division and separation of the people, for which they demand his immediate departure from the country under the cry of one army, one nation. The deadly fighting between the Army of Sudan and the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, which broke out on April 15th, has already left more than 1,000 dead and a million displaced. In this context, the UN aid representative in Sudan decried on Thursday multiple serious breaches of the agreement reached by the nation's warring parties to spare civilians and civilian infrastructure and to let in badly needed aid. The United Nations aid chief Martin Griffiths welcomed the May 12th declaration signed in Saudi Arabia by the two sides in Sudan's bloody conflict, who vowed to refrain from attacking humanitarians delivering desperately needed aid. The UN official told the press that while aid deliveries have picked up, there have been breaches of the agreement. The Doctors Without Borders charity group said on Wednesday that its Khartoum warehouse had been raided a day earlier, while Griffiths pointed out to an attack the same day on the World Food Programme office in the Sudanese capital, among many examples. Griffiths stressed that assistance must be scaled up to respond to the spiraling situation in Sudan since the conflict erupted on April 15th. And Martin Griffiths referred to the constant reports of looting of food warehouses of humanitarian aid organizations in Sudan.
Is that the World Food Programme, I think, announced yesterday that they had lost about $56 million worth of food stocks value in Sudan as a result of these activities. That's an enormous and shocking figure, a disgraceful figure in its own way. And there has obviously been a great worry on the part of the humanitarian agencies that to restock is to restock places which will get looted. It was a place of greatest need when this started, a month ago. I mean, it was a place of dire need and extraordinary insecurity and great fragility. Well, that's just, in spades now. And added to that is the fact that it's different in different parts of Darfur, that the laying waste of Darfur, which has happened in the west, is not quite the same in the north, but it's also very unstable in the north. So you've got a very patchy picture.
And in Sudan, war clashes have so far displaced more than 1 million people to neighboring countries. The International Organization for Migration reported that some 883,130 people were forced to leave their residential areas and had to relocate within the country. Another 253,000 people crossed the borders, totaling almost 1.1 million. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development pointed out that the army and the paramilitary forces are responsible for this situation because of their involvement in the war, so they will have to be held accountable for their actions. Experts from international organizations assure that behind this war is the competition between populations that monopolize power resources and the most marginalized sectors of this ethnic mosaic. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.